Savannah Therapeutic Stories is very excited
to share with you Tiana's tale. Tiana the zebra and her family arrived on the savannah after a long journey from the south. She was feeling tired and hungry as she followed her parents and grandfather to the new place they would call home.
In the distance, she could hear the hustle and bustle from the other herds and nervously looked out the window. It had been a long journey and Tiana felt deflated and sad when she thought about what had happened in the south. They had left in a rush and she wondered if she would make new friends in her home. Suddenly, her mother strode onto the veranda carrying food that smelled so good that Tiana's belly began to growl.
After lunch, Tiana's mum was busy unpacking all the boxes and giving orders about what went where to her dad and grandfather. Her dad looked at her and suggested, "Why don't you go and explore? But don't go too far and make sure that we can see you when we look out of the window."
Tiana could hear the loud laughter of the animals playing football across the savannah. She nervously walked over the square as she gazed at all the varieties of the different animals having fun together. Curiously, she wondered about joining in with them, but immediately her heart began to beat as fast as a bongo drum. She felt unsure and nervous, although she really did want to join in as football was her favorite game.
Sitting under the shade of the big baobab tree was Elle the elephant. Now, Elle was the wise elephant of the savannah. She was always ready to listen to the tales the little ones told. She smiled as she noticed Tiana and invited her over to say hello. Nervously, Tiana walked over and said, "Hello, I'm Tiana. We just moved here."
Elle replied in a warm, welcoming voice. "Hello, Tiana. Lovely to meet you. I'm Elle. I love meeting new families. Welcome to the savannah." Tiana smiled shyly, kicking the dusty mud, replying, "Thank you, Elle." Elle whispered, "Are you feeling a bit shy about joining in with the others playing football?" Tiana nodded as tears welled up in her eyes, and suddenly, without warning, she darted off, leaving Elle a bit confused.
The next day dawned bright and warm. As the day grew, so did the hustle and bustle of the village. 4 friends made their way carrying a picnic down to the square by the big baobab tree where they always played football.
Silo the lion cub, Hetty the hedgehog, Peter the panther, and Jerry Giraffe were all firm friends. They loved nothing more than playing football and cricket together, laughing and joking as they played. Yesterday, they'd seen a new zebra talking to Elle, but before they could invite her to play, she was gone. They chatted inquisitively, wondering if the mysterious zebra would be back today.
They were so busy talking and playing that they did not notice Tiana was watching them, longing to play and join in the fun. Elle was walking home with her shopping when she noticed Tiana and went over. "Good morning, Tiana. It's really nice to see you again." "Good morning, Elle," Tiana stammered quietly. In her soothing voice, Elle said, "You left in such a hurry yesterday. Is everything okay?" They stood together for a while in silence, watching the friends playing. Elle leaned towards Tiana and in a calm voice said, "Tiana, I can't help but notice that you really want to play, but you seem a bit hesitant." Tiana looked at Elle with her big eyes and nodded. Elle rested her shopping on the ground before sitting on a large rock and patted the one next to her for Tiana to join her.
They sat for a moment before Tiana suddenly gushed out, "We had to move from the southern savannah where the wildebeest became king and queen of the south, and they did not like all the different animals living together."
Hot tears rolled down her face and she cried, "They would make fun of my stripes and say mean things about the color of my skin. And once another animal pulled my tail. By this time, the tears were coming fast, and Elle reached over and gently put her trunk around her shoulders and said, I heard about the wildebeest in the south. That must have been so scary. I can't begin to imagine how you and your family are feeling after all you have gone through.
She gave Tiana a tissue, and they sat in silence for a few minutes. Tiana carried on explaining to Elle about why her family had moved all the way across the savannah to make a new home. She explained, I came home from school one day and my parents told me about the awful sign that the wildebeest had put up, which had a list of animals not allowed to drink from the watering hole.
I was so confused and didn't understand what the sign meant. Then my grandfather slowly walked over to me and gave me a big hug and said, Tiana, I want you to know how beautiful your black and white stripes are. You should be proud of them. Tiana nodded as he stroked her stripe. Unfortunately, the wildebeest in southern savannah do not want things to change and do not like it when different herds mix with each other, especially when their fur has patterns and different colors. Tiana remembered, gasping, It's not fair. Is that why at school they tease me about my stripes and pull my tail? Her mother rushed over and kissed her and said, We know it's not been easy for you, Tiana, and we've been talking with your teachers and other parents to bring about change. However, her voice trailed off as she fought back tears.
Tiana's dad shook his head sadly from side to side. Tiana, Mum and I have been talking about this with your grandfather for a long time. We have all agreed that we are going to move to a new part of the savannah where the northern king and queen welcome and encourage lots of different animals living together. He continued, I know you might feel like this is a running away, but for our family, we want to live in a place where the richness of everyone's difference is celebrated.
Elle listened to Tiana as she absorbed the enormity of the story and in a shaky voice replied, Tiana, what's happened to you and your family is unfair and unjust. In the northern savannah, we work hard together as a community to have open conversations about the differences in all animals.
Elle and Tiana continued to talk about the difficult experiences that her and her family had been through, the uncomfortable feelings that she'd felt, the anger and sadness that was so strong inside her that sometimes it felt like a volcano waiting to erupt. Tiana said, I feel like we ran away. She breathed a ginormous sigh of relief and let out all the feelings that she'd been carrying from her from the southern savannah. And Elle looked at Elle and said, Thank you, Elle. I feel so much better to talk. Elle replied in a soothing voice, I'm always here to listen if you need me.
Just then, Peter bounded over and shyly introduced himself to Tiana. Hi, my name's Peter, and these are my friends, Hetty, Jerry, and Silo. We were wondering if you wanted to come and play with us. Tiana looked at Elle. Go on, said Elle. They'll take care of you. Tiana ran off with Peter as he introduced her to the others.